and I'm joined again by Star Wars Transmissions. So thanks for coming on again. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Ozzy. I am definitely looking forward to talking some Star Wars with you.
Yeah. We missed the earlier time in the week because it just didn't line up and I slept in. So that's my bad. But anyway, we'll just get right into it. So let me just pull up the PowerPoint that I accidentally have set to the second side because that's how organized I am today. And so John Boyega has been reached out to by Disney and Daisy Ridley to come on and do the new Jedi Order film or whatever it is, basically Star Wars Episode 10. So I came across an article that basically said the Damon Lindelof's version was going to be 60 years before after the events of Rise of Skywalker, rather than the 15, the one that's who's it directed by? Completely
Oh,
forgotten.
I can't pronounce her name. Charmine Sherboy. I'm gonna
Oh
botch
yeah,
it.
okay,
Charmine
yeah,
something. I don't want to butcher it. I can't remember exactly it
yeah.
offhand, but she directed not the Miss Marvel, the Marvel show on Disney Plus, and I'm drawing a blank at that name.
Yeah, okay. Wait, Miss Marvel, did she direct or
It
something
was
else?
the show, the MCU show for not Miss Marvel. Or is it Miss Marvel? I'm not the biggest
I don't know.
MCU
Yeah,
guy, but yeah, it was the MCU series on Disney Plus with like the other Marvel, Ms. Marvel, or not Captain Marvel, but the younger um, Marvel, Ms. Marvel from New Jersey.
yeah, okay. I've sort of zoned out on the MCU recently. Just hi, Mad Cave. Thanks for joining us, mate. But yeah, it's just there's too much content coming out. I watched the first couple of episodes of Secret Invasion,
I still
but
haven't
yeah,
watched Secret Invasion. I was gonna watch it, but I was bummed out that I don't know if they've changed this, but the opening credits are apparently made by AI, which I have a big problem with, especially with a company like Marvel and Disney that could totally afford to pay artists to create that. So I haven't watched it yet.
I mean, I saw that, but I agree it is a bit like, that's it's sort of stealing other people's jobs. But okay, it does make sense given the whole premise of the show being the scrolls and them being able to
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I
yeah
I feel I this is my take with MCU. I'm never like super excited for stuff, and then once I watch them, like, oh, that was awesome. Probably should have watched it sooner than I originally planned to. So I'm at some point I'll probably watch Secret Invasion.
yeah. But so I forgot to pull up the picture. But yeah, what do you think of just Finn coming back? Hopefully he'll be a Jedi. I sort of hope that was the direction they'd take it in the Last Jedi, which didn't happen, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I to me this is like how could you not have John Boyega return? They set up in, and I know it's not canon, but in the Christmas special, the Lego Christmas special, Finn is being trained by Rey, and in the Rise of Skywalker, the whole message, the whole thing that Finn wants to talk to Rey about is the fact that he understands that he's force sensitive. So to me, it makes a lot of sense that you would bring John Boyega back. I feel like fans want to see John Boyega as a Jedi. I want to see John Boyega as a Jedi. So I think it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I hope he comes back. Even though he's sort of said in interviews he doesn't want to because of how they treated his character with a lot of things. Matt Cave's excited to see Finn return. Yeah, I think it'll be good if they do it, and yeah, hopefully he does become a Jedi and is force sensitive. Could be really cool to see.
I think money talks ultimately. He could, this is a business, and sometimes he could be posturing to get to know, like, hey, they're going to make this series, and most likely they're going to want me. Like, if I make it seem like, hey, I don't want to do Star Wars, I could potentially negotiate a larger salary for uh, whatever I do in the film. But I would be, to be honest, I would be surprised if he didn't return. I really would be. But
Yeah,
yeah, I definitely read stuff that he was not thrilled with how Finn's character went, and rightfully so, and how he was treated on during the filming of the sequel. So I totally get that, but I think ultimately money talks, and if Lucasfilm gives him a good amount of money, he probably would do it. At least I hope he would.
yeah. And he deserves a good amount of money for it. He's really good at acting and did a great job in the sequels with what he had. Yeah, I really hope he comes back.
I concur. Have you ever seen? He did a movie, Attack the Block. You ever see that movie? And I actually think there's a
No,
sequel coming out. It's a really fun movie. It takes the premise is basically like London is invaded by these creatures, and it's John Boyega's character and his friends like just like fighting them throughout the course of a night. It's a pretty fun movie.
yeah, no, I'll check that. What streaming service is it on?
Oh man, I'm not even sure. It's been a long time since I've watched it. I'm sure you could probably find it somewhere.
Yeah, I'll just Google it later on. So moving on to the next thing, this one has me really excited, and it's about something that didn't go too well. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny only got about 60 million in the box office in the US on its opening weekend, which I think is the the lowest of all the Indiana Jones, and it's got the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score. That's
Wow,
good news.
I'm so surprised by that. That I had no clue. So this is like blasphemy. I've only seen one Indiana Jones movie, and apparently it's the worst one. The what is it? The Crystal Skull? I don't even know what it's called. It was the fourth one.
Yeah,
I have never seen any of the I haven't seen the first three. I haven't seen Dial of Destiny. I'm surprised because I've seen nothing but good things about this film on Twitter and on Instagram.
yeah, I think I know it's got very mixed feelings. I think I pulled up some reviews just off well, not reviews, just overall how it's looking. 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes was 68% and 4 out of 10 on IGN.
Wow, I'm very surprised by that, man. I never would have guessed based on some of the stuff. I've been really trying to avoid stuff because I've seen some positive things. Like I enjoy Star Wars Explained, and he's a big Indiana Jones fan. He's been doing a bunch of indie stuff, and I've been trying to avoid what he's because I don't want any spoilers. And I did see that he like loved it, and some other people that I follow have said the same thing. So I'm very surprised that it didn't do so well. I wonder
Yeah,
why.
yeah, not 100% sure. Just combination of different things with the previous one not being the most well received, and then sequel comes along to that. We saw the same thing with Solo when The Last Jedi happened. It's just like that. And then the really good thing that could come out of this is we've been saying it for probably years now, but Kathleen Kennedy could be gone because of that. I hope that
I don't know,
happens.
man. I don't
Yeah,
know. She seems to be like entrenched at Lucasfilm. I'm gonna put a hot take out there. I'm not. I'm definitely not someone that's like fire Kathleen Kennedy. She might have taken some L's, but she's got some serious W's in there as well. So I'm not the like biggest Kathleen Kennedy hater. To me, whether she's there or not, it doesn't really bother me.
yeah. Just another ratings thing is 3.7 overall on Google, which isn't terrible. It's not good either though. So just just leave it at that. Yeah, Matt Cave's going to see it tomorrow, so hopefully it'll be good and you'll enjoy it. You'll have to let us know how it goes.
Yeah, Matt Cave
What's up?
said something in the chat that I kind of agree with is that I don't
This
think
one? Or?
people go to the theaters like they used to, man. Like I certainly don't. I used to go to the movies all the time. And now it's like it's got to be a Star Wars movie 100%, certain MCU movies definitely, but like even Oppenheimer, like Oppenheimer's coming out soon in the US, and I really want to see it, but I probably won't go to the theater to see it. Like I probably won't go. I also really want to see new Wes Anderson film. I probably won't see it. And those would have been movies 10, 15 years ago. I 100% would have went opening night or opening weekend to see. But I saw something on Twitter that someone said, I'm like, dude, this is like 100% on point for me. And someone was like, why am I going to spend like $15 for a ticket and then however much for concessions and sit in a crowded theater, have to deal with people when I could sit in my house in the comfort of my home, pause the movie whenever I want, do whatever the hell I want, watch it whenever I want. I'm like, dude, that's it right there, man. Like that is why I don't go to the movies as much anymore, which is sad because I do love going to the movies. And when you get a really fun theatrical experience, it's dope. But yeah, I think Hollywood just kind of doesn't holding on to the fact that the idea that people are going to go to the movies in droves, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've sort of lost a lot of that too recently. I didn't even go to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in cinemas. I'm just waiting for it to come out on Disney Plus.
That movie, I'm so glad that I went to the theaters to see. The main reason why I wanted to see that in theaters is because of James Gunn. The first Guardians was awesome. Peacemaker series was fantastic. The Suicide Squad film that he did was fantastic. So I had good I had some faith that he was going to deliver in Guardians 3, and he really did. That movie was freaking awesome. It was so good, and I'm really glad that I saw it in theaters.
Yeah, I sort of just haven't gotten around to it and haven't been that interested. Even though I love the first two Guardians and
Yeah.
Infinity War was great, just anything with them in them has been really good.
Another thing that I read is someone pointed out is that like blockbusters used to be like big theatrical releases used to be like only a handful a summer. You know, there wasn't like, I mean, it feels like there's a big blockbuster movie like once every month, or at least it's marketed as this big blockbuster film. And there's so many of them. And I think at some point studios are going to have to kind of like do an audible and figure out how to address this. That's for someone else to figure out. So someone above our pay grades.
Yeah, yeah. No, I see. I never even thought of that, but yeah, there is a lot of like really, really high marketed movies that have a lot of hype surrounding them. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Which would you prefer? A series or a film? What would you rather like experience or consume?
For Star Wars, we need a movie. It's been way too long since the last one. I just want another movie, want to go watch it in theaters, and I think that'd be great. But there's a lot more you can do with a series because you have so much more time. It's just rather than being 2.5 hours, you've got 10 hours or something.
I think that's the thing too, man, is that series has shows and streaming services have changed the paradigm. I would have, if you had asked me this question 10 years ago, it would have been 100%. Hey, I prefer a movie over a television show. But now with all these streaming services and how much money's being poured into series and seeing the types of content that we can get in a show, I kind of would prefer a show over a movie. You know, I feel like it's very, you're like you mentioned before, you could just spend so much time building up your characters, developing the story. Where in a movie, you may have what max like 2.5 hours ish, maybe
Yeah.
three, depending upon the film. Right. So I probably would prefer a series over a movie.
Yeah, I mean, you see what happened with Andor, like the payoff of them being able to build on all these characters. If it was a movie, we would have gotten so much less of that.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Andor is a great point. I just crushed The Bear, which is a totally not sci-fi series, but it is freaking fantastic. And the second series just dropped. My wife and I crushed it in like 3 days. I can't remember the last time I binge watched 2 seasons of a series that quick. And that's the other thing that's so dope about streaming services, that it gives us that opportunity to spend that much time with a certain story or characters that we like.
Yeah, and like Matt Cave said, when it's written well, it's always really good.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, so I'm just back on the topic of Indiana Jones. If Kathleen Kennedy was to be fired, who would you want to replace her?
I don't know, man. I guess like there's so much that's involved with that stuff. I think fans don't. I don't even understand what's involved with her job. I think there's more to it than a lot of us realize. Like I see a lot of people say, "Oh, well." Originally, I saw a lot of people saying like, "Oh, hand it over to Jon Favreau," and then with some of the stuff that's been happening with like Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, now a lot of fans are not the biggest Jon Favreau fan, and I've seen people mention Dave Filoni. I don't know, like if those guys have the I don't know if business acumen is the right word or the right phrase to go the stuff that goes into producing and creating films and series outside of just actual filmmaking. I don't know, but like I think Dave Filoni would be the person that you would say, hey, if there would be any one person that has good knowledge about Star Wars and the Force, that I would be like, hey, let's hand that reins over to this person to control Lucasfilm and direct where Lucasfilm is going to go to from here. Probably would be Dave Filoni, but I don't know who the hell else would be a viable option, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I think Dave Filoni would probably be the best choice. The only thing that scares me is we get someone worse.
Yeah,
Which,
that's
yeah,
a very good point, right? Like the grass isn't always greener, you know? And again, like
yeah,
I've seen a lot of people mention throw out Dave Filoni's name. Dave Filoni may not want to any take part in that at all. He may want to be like, "Yo, I want to make shows. I want to make animation series. I want to start making film." Like he's mentioned how he wants to get into live action more, which we know he's done with The Mandalorian and now with his upcoming film. So he may have no desire to run a studio. I
yeah,
honestly don't know. And you do bring up a good point, man. Like the grass isn't always greener.
yeah. I mean, hopefully we get someone better. If she's even fired in the first place, she might just stay there for another 20 years or so.
Because
Just,
I think
yeah,
if you think about some of the things that she has done positively, or how do I want to say this? She's brought in a lot of money for Disney, essentially, right? And I that's where a lot of this comes down to.
yeah,
So who the heck knows who else could be able to replace her if there was someone that would be considered. I honestly don't know who it would be.
yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Just money that she's brought in a lot of it. Just hoping that the fact that she hasn't brought in a lot with Indiana Jones might
The one
sort of
thing
sway Lucasfilm.
the one thing I will say that makes me feel like Lucasfilm is starting, at least for their uh like live action stuff. I feel like on the film side of things, it seems like they've learned from the sequel trilogy, because we heard, was it Bob Chapek? I can't remember who it was. Someone from Disney basically saying like, "Hey, we are going to get back into Star Wars films, releasing Star Wars films, and we want to be very deliberate and very thoughtful in what we do with our films." So I think Lucasfilm, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and saying, hey, I think they learned from the sequel trilogy and not planning things out, that they're trying to be more thoughtful and planning things out for their films. And then I'm hoping we're going to get some really great theatrical experiences with these upcoming films, I'm trying to be optimistic.
Yeah. Sort of have to be, yeah. What's Matt Cave said, I agree. I feel like they're going with a plan this time.
Yeah, I think
I hope so, yeah.
was it the other day? I think it was Kathleen Kennedy. I saw like a notification pop up on my phone, like a headline that James Mangold's film could, some of the themes or some of the stuff that we get in that film could tie into some of the stuff that might play out in the Daisy Ridley film, which I think would make sense. And I think it would be cool to kind of connect, maybe thematically connect the two together. To me, it seems like there is more of a plan with these films. At least I hope that's the case.
Yeah, you would hope so. You'd hope they'd learn. So moving on to the next bit of news is we finally got an update on Star Wars Eclipse. I think it's been a long time. I don't remember quite how long it's been since the trailer and last time we heard some news. But basically, they're now aiming to release in 2026. Whether or not that'll actually happen, I don't know. But
man, 3 years, that's a while. But yeah, when did we get that trailer? Was it a year ago, year and a half ago?
I want to say yes. I think so.
I wonder if, because was it like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, I started seeing videos. I think it was from Eckhart's Ladder, talking about how he was hearing rumblings of there being issues with this series, and that the studio might have been having issues with getting maybe animators or people to create the game. So I wonder if there was something behind the scenes that was causing that delay. Maybe there was some validity to what Eckhart Ladder was talking about. But yeah, I mean, even let's say it's last year that it was released, 4 years. I don't know. I'm not the biggest, like, I don't spend a ton of time like researching games that are in development, so I don't know how long it typically takes for a game to be developed, but that just seems like a long time, 4 years.
Yeah, I know there was some stuff going on behind the scenes. I didn't look into a lot of the details, but there was a lot of stuff going on that would have slowed it down.
Yeah, the other thing too is
yeah.
that the there's been some issues with that developer. What's their name? Quantum. Geez, I can't remember the name of the developer. There's been, like, I think maybe not sexual assault allegations, but they're Quantic Dreams.
Yeah, there we go.
They seem to be a very problematic studio. There's been a lot of issues surrounding the owner or the president of that company, and I wonder if that too played into a potential delay.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to imagine stuff like that would at least delay it a bit, like having problems with anyone working on it. Yeah.
Are you excited for that game?
Yeah, I think it'll be good. Matt Caves just said he's getting flashbacks to when Duke Nukem Forever kept getting announced and then not coming out. Years and years later, it finally arrived and failed miserably.
Dude, Duke Nukem, like, I remember when one of the, like, I think the first Duke Nukem came out, that game was, I don't remember how old I was, but when that game came out, I thought it was like the coolest game in the world. Yeah, with Star Wars stuff, I have learned to temper my excitement, because how many stuff have we gotten over the last several years where it gets announced and then it's just like we quietly hear nothing about it at all.
I'll start
Right?
by listing Lando, Rogue Squadron, just
Right?
Man.
So that trailer for Eclipse was sick and I was super excited for it, but I was like, hey, if it doesn't happen, that would be a bummer, but I'm kind of like I'll wait. I'll believe it when I see it, kind of a thing. And so I'm not surprised now that it's getting a potential 2026 release.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that if they released a trailer, the game would only be a couple of years away from release. Like,
I would think. I'm trying to remember it because, like I said, it was like 6 months ago or so that I watched that video from Eckhart's Ladder. I think one of the things he mentioned in it is that when you see studios release trailers like that, that it's kind of like a hey, it's an ad to get game developers to come and work for the studio, like basically saying like almost like a job posting kind of a thing. Hey, we're developing this game. Look how cool this cinematic looks. Come and be a part of this team, sort of a thing. I don't know how true that is because I don't follow that stuff closely enough, but that to me would make sense.
yeah. And the fact that it's a cinematic trailer, there's no gameplay, that
Yeah.
obviously says a lot about where it's at in development.
Yeah, but oh man, dude, though that cinematic looked incredible. Looks so good.
Yeah.
The other thing too that makes me just one last thing I'm not surprised about this 2026 date is, and this was one of my things that I mentioned when the game came out, was I would imagine Lucasfilm would want the High Republic initiative, all the phases of the High Republic, to be released so that that story is completely finished, so that the game either ties into it or builds on it or doesn't have any issues with the overall narrative of the stuff that we're getting in the books and the comics from the High Republic. So that 2026 date, that's also another reason why I'm not surprised by it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Another thing I didn't think of there with all the High Republic books coming out.
Because I think the next phase is we're still in phase 2. I don't know if all the books for phase 2 have been released, but phase 3 is going to start, I want to say winter-ish, like December, January. I could be wrong though. I know there's going to be a big there's going to be some High Republic discussion and announcements at San Diego Comic-Con, which is happening later this month. But I think phase 3 is going to start sometime around the winter.
Yeah, okay. I've just sort of completely fallen off of the High Republic. I read a lot of the books from phase 1, I think, and then just couldn't keep up with it.
It's a lot, but I would say totally like try to dabble with it as much as you can. I just read issue 7 of Kevin Scott's High Republic comic series, and it was awesome as hell. It was so good.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to get back into it, but I'm still reading Heir to the Empire, because what I'm trying to do is write down everything that happens after every chapter, so I can then make a video about it for people who aren't able to read it. So
nice.
It's just very time consuming having to do that. Moving on to the next thing. This one's really interesting. The fact that we almost got a R-rated Boba Fett movie and then ended up getting Book of Boba Fett.
So I didn't read this. I saw this. This is another headline that I saw. So I didn't get to read the full like details about it.
Yeah, basically on the podcast, they had James Mangold on there, and they said he's gonna scare everyone with what would be a borderline R-rated spaghetti western single planet sort of thing. And it's like Baby Yoda obviously couldn't be in something like that. It's just no. And yeah, that's just it got cancelled because I think Solo just didn't do well.
Man, I don't think we'll ever get an R-rated Star Wars movie, but man, like what I would give for an R-rated Star Wars movie. I don't know if you've seen Logan, which James Mangold directed. That's an R-rated Marvel movie. It is so freaking awesome. It's so good. I can't even imagine getting like, could you imagine if we got so Boba Fett, like an R-rated Boba Fett would be dope, but could you imagine like an R-rated Darth Vader movie or an
Yeah, just like
R-rated like Sith movie? Holy crap.
imagine like that scene in Kenobi where he's just going along, walking along, snapping people's necks and stuff. Imagine that in a full on.
Right?
Yeah, that would be really cool.
And like James Mangold has shown he could make a pretty badass like sci-fi fantasy, well maybe not fantasy, sci-fi R-rated movie.
Yeah, you've sort of answered the question I was about to ask you. I think if you could get an R-rated movie about anything in Star Wars that you wanted, what would it be?
Oh, dude, it would 100% have to be something focused on the Sith. And then I'm like torn between would I want it to be about Darth Plagueis or would I want it to be about Darth Bane? I don't either one. Like, sign me up. Could you? So, have you read the Darth Bane trilogy?
No, that's another one I got to read. There's so many.
Oh my
It's just
god,
like
there is so many, but dude, I would suggest highly recommend the Darth Bane trilogy. And the reason why I bring that up is you spend time with Bane as he's coming up in the Sith Order, training at the Sith Academy on Korriban, and you see like the stuff that he has to go through. Even if even if it wasn't an exact retelling of that story, just seeing Darth Bane becoming a Sith Lord and then destroying the Sith Order like an R version would be insane. It would be so freaking sick.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing like Abeloth in canon somehow, and then an R-rated sort of thing of that, or the Blackwing virus. I don't
That
know
would
if
be
you're.
cool. Yeah, those would
You,
be cool. You could make like Abeloth could be totally like horror. I mean, both could be
yeah,
horror films, to be quite honest with you.
yeah. Have you like? How much do you know about like Blackwing virus sort of stuff?
I know more about Abeloth than Blackwing virus. And so correct me if I'm wrong. Blackwing virus was basically to reanimate troopers, right? Stormtroopers.
Yeah, it's sort of. Yeah, it's just I only know it because my friend is completely obsessed with it and just will not shut up about it. So I had to watch a video that's just a summary of the entire plot, and it's pretty cool. Like seeing
It's
that would be really cool.
it basically made like Stormtrooper zombies, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So Matt Kev said some of the audiobooks of Star Wars novels feature music and decent voice acting. Worth finding the Thrawn trilogy and Ahsoka audiobooks were great.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. The Ahsoka book is voiced the audiobook is voiced by Ashley Eckstein.
Oh, okay.
And the Mark Thompson does a lot of the canon voice acting for the or narration for the canon novels, and I'm trying to remember. He's done some legend stuff. The actor who did the Bane audiobook is freaking fantastic. He's done several that I've listened to. I'm trying to remember who did Darth Plagueis because I also listened to I listened to the audiobook for Plagueis. But yes, the Star Wars audiobooks are dope. They're really good.
Yeah, I think I listened to a little bit of one about Revan. I can't remember what one. It was just
Yeah,
I
did
just saw
I?
it at the time. Yeah.
It must have been the Old Republic, like companion book. I
Yeah.
listened to that, and I for a while I was just listening to Star Wars audiobooks. Like how I got into reading Star Wars novels was through the audiobooks. Like that was my first experience with the Star Wars novel was an audiobook. I would take them out from the library, and then I was like, screw this. I want to just have a book collection. So I started
Yeah.
buying books, but they are fantastic. They're like awesome productions. You get music, you get sound effects. They're really good. I would highly recommend them, especially if you're not the biggest fan of reading. Definitely check out audiobooks. They're done very well. Even the Legends ones.
Yeah. And while we're on the topic of R-rated films, there's Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon film was originally pitched to Star Wars basically pretty soon after they pitched to Disney rather pretty soon after they bought Star Wars. So
which I'm kind of
just gonna-
glad that did not happen. Here's my reason why. Zack Snyder is like very hit or miss. I actually enjoyed the Snyder cut of Justice League, but some of his other stuff is not the best. Like when I was younger, I loved his Watchmen movie, and my wife had not seen it. And so recently, it was within the last like 6 months or so, I was like, you got to watch this movie. But I hadn't seen it since probably 10 years ago. Like, you have to watch this movie. It's great. I sat down and watched it with her, and I was just like, man, this movie kind of sucks. It is not as good as I thought it was. So I'm not the biggest Zack Snyder fan. So even though Rebel Moon sounds awesome, I kind of am happy that didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting. The fact that it's basically separate from all the other. Just gonna readjust my earphone in here. Just the fact that it's basically separate from everything else is that it sort of could fit into Star Wars anyway, even though it's in its own separate universe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I might end up watching it at some stage.
Yeah, it's going to be on Netflix, right? Or am I mistaken?
Probably. I think I saw that somewhere, yeah.
I think it is. I could be wrong, though.
So that'll be... I mean, there's a lot of sort of just this week R-rated stuff coming up that Disney said no to.
Yeah, which, I mean, I'm not surprised. I don't... And, you know, fans that are, like, losing their minds about this, like, come on, bro. Disney's not going to... I would be absolutely shocked